Most distilleries, they do something called pilot runs or a pilot batch. It's kind of like a small scale starter batch to see whether or not the proportion of grains in that bourbon and the process and the yeast and everything that they're using is nice. So a mash bill is basically just the combination of ingredients that are going to be in that whiskey, just the combination of the grains. This is going to be 75% corn, 21% rye, 4% barley. These grains have already been milled. One, because it's super convenient, and there's this little thing known as dust explosions. Before you even get into tasting, you want to make sure that safety, first and foremost, is being adhered to at all times. If you come and look at the warning on the side of this bucket, do not let your children fall into the bucket and drown. It's a real thing, so we're going to check this bucket for any... That's, I'm so sorry. Handcrafted. Few hundred more times. Okay, we get the grains, not all at once because we don't want big clumps. Now, for those that care, this is yellow dent corn. It's one of the most commonly used corns. Next, we're gonna do the rye. So our final grain, barley's going in. I don't see any clumping so far. So good. I cannot wait to try what this turns into. Truly excellent stuff. So we have some minerals here. Keeps the pH nice so the enzymes can do their work nice and comfortably. The enzymes like this are gonna convert the starches into sugars, and the sugars are needed by the yeast to convert into ethanol, into alcohol. So we can get that sweet, sweet booze. That's looking excellent. Wow, that's very sweet. Already the sugars are super obvious. At this point, we need the temperature to be at about 150 degrees. We want it to be there for about 60 to 75 minutes to get everything out of those grains that we want to get. So the way that we're doing that is right here, this is a hose that is recirculating and heating up in this other tank. Notice that there's no big chunks of grain floating through here because everything is living in that very fine net, where you can just pull liquid straight through here without this getting clogged up and weird in the pump. That's going into this coil, this heated coil that's recirculating back through here, back through this hot water, and in to this tank. Once again, you can see the trickle, the flow right through there. Water circulating, it's heating up, it's getting us to that ideal temperature. It'll live there 75 minutes-ish, and then we're gonna be ready for the next step. Okay, it's been many minutes. It's basically had that time with the heat. The enzymes have been breaking down the starches and turning them into sugars. We want to transfer it into this tank here, and we're going to start to cool it down because it needs to be quite a bit colder than 145 degrees Fahrenheit in order for the yeast to start doing what they need to do with those sugars.
I'm adding water at the same rate I'm draining.
Okay.
And all that fresh water is just going to rinse out all the sugars.
So you're actually adding in another 13 gallons of water because that's going to give you the total volume that we want as it goes into the fermentation tank. It's going to push out all of that wash. If you're from the beer background, you may call it wort, and there it is. It's turning nice and clear. That same flow should be dumping in here. We have a specimen. Yeah, just very, very grainy. Oh. Very granola, grain forward, super sweet. It's like a sugary sweetness. In our distillery, all the water that we are using is actually rainwater. Doors broke. We're gonna have to go around and you're familiar with delegation? Like good managers delegate? Good job. Good job. rainwater collection tank. This entire roof, all of the guttering and the piping goes down into there, and we collect all the rainwater, use that for making all of the whiskey. And this is the filtration system to make sure that it is nice and clean for all the stuff that we want to do in here. This episode has been sponsored by Trade Coffee. You know what Trade Coffee is?
You take a quiz,
yeah,
based on your preferences and things that you like.
And if you pass.
And if you pass the quiz, you get coffee, right?
Over at Trade, the team of people have tried thousands of different coffees, but they've narrowed it down to 450 to keep live that they can send to you based on those preferences, so you can explore everything happening in coffee right now from some of the nation's most talented roasters. Drinktrade.com/whiskeytribe. You're gonna get $30 off your first order and maybe free shipping. Let me check. Oh yeah, it's free shipping. That's totally right.
Oh, South American and African bean.
Yep.
They tasted toasted walnut, toffee, and dark chocolate, which sounds exactly like what I would have chosen on a quiz.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, it doesn't have that bitter bite on the back.
Yeah, and also it's low acid.
We're going to make a coffee-based cocktail that we are going to link in the description down below if you guys want to see exactly this new creation that Richard has put together for us. What do we got?
A cold brew ice cube with rye whiskey, cold brew, and vanilla chai cream. Starting off with 1.5 ounces. Then we're going to top this with our vanilla cream right down the center.
Oh, like that. There we go.
This has no bitterness. It has all of the coffee flavor and like the coffee cream type thing, but none of the bitterness.
This may be one of my favorites rye-based cocktails ever.
Damn.
What do you call this masterpiece?
Absolutely no idea.
Click the link in the description down below, and you're gonna be able to also find a page where Richard has all of the ingredients for absolutely no idea. Also, Father's Day. Did you get your dad anything? Does he like coffee?
Yes.
There you go. We're gonna move this over to the fermenter and the glycol chiller. Now we're gonna take it down to the exact right temperature for that yeast to do its thing. This is pretty cool. Glycol is interesting because it allows you to get that liquid colder than what you could get water, because water would freeze. So glycol cooler right here. I'll show you the parts after we get this settled. Now we're gonna pump it using this pump. There it goes, all the way through. Now it's coming out into our tank. I'm gonna show you the glycol chiller. This should be nice and cold. Oh yeah, it's chilly. I'll show you what's going on. Underneath this lid, you have the coil. So the glycol is going through in that tank, the exact same type of coil. This is getting really, really cold, so all of this hot liquid that's around this very, very cold coil can cool down to the ideal temperature.
We'll probably do around 80 for this distiller's yeast.
So Kyle has got the temperature down below 90 degrees where we wanted it, and one of the final things we want to do, this is the alpha amylase. This is going to be added to basically take any kind of long chain sugars and turn them into simple sugars, because the simple sugars are what the yeast eat up and turn into ethanol.
This will help us dry this sucker out and get as much ethanol as we can out of this.
Nice, okay. We're using dry active distiller's yeast, also known as daddy yeast, and we need 5 of these.
Yes.
1, 5. Now this spent grain that we pulled all the sugars out of, if you happen to know a farmer, this is amazing feed for cattle. They absolutely love this stuff, and it's very, very healthy for them. It's really sweet, very warm. It's not bad. It's like a warm, sugary granola oatmeal type of thing. Let's test the sugar content, specific gravity here. There we go. We're gonna use the refractometer. Oh wow, that is such a solid line. That looks great. Where are we supposed to be?
We're low, so.
Yeah, we are at 10, and we want to be at about 15 bricks. We're not quite there. So that's why you do pilot runs. We want to get the most volume possible out of this process. We want to get that specific gravity, those sugars higher, but for now, the taste should be perfectly fine. Do we still continue with that process to see what it turns into?
Yes, they're low, but they're not super low. So we'll still probably get maybe 8% beer out of it.
Most people don't realize that. The first part of making whiskey is basically making beer. In order to sell that beer, it needs to be pasteurized. So at this point, we have the yeast in there, it's fermenting, it's gonna be turning those simple sugars into ethanol. Awesome. We're gonna check back on Thursday. Godspeed, you yeasty bastards. I can only f around. I'm sorry. I'm walking normal. Good morning. So the most obvious way that we know that a fermentation is doing what it needs to do is the yeast is kicking off a lot of CO2. It's gas. It's got to go somewhere. And so if gas is coming out, we have a gas lock right here, then we know fermentation is working. How do we go about getting this transferred into the still? Because the next step is to get it distilled. So we're going to put it into this is a hybrid still. One of the criteria is, in addition to bourbon being mostly corn, it can't be distilled higher than 160 proof. So in doing this process, we're going to make sure we stay under 160. And this process of small scale pilot batches, experimental runs, this is very common in distilleries of all shapes and sizes. Obviously, we are a small distillery, so we're using a tiny, tiny still for our pilot batches. But I think we're about ready to get the water running and this heated up. This is a very critical part of the process. You need your hose to f up for flavor. We have the fermented wash in the still. The still is heating up. Pretty soon it's going to get to a point where we have these ethanol vapors starting to evaporate because ethanol evaporates before water. And as those vapors evaporate, they're going to go up through here, meet this cooling jacket, condense back into a liquid, and drip off as our new make spirit. Okay, so we've done the first run through the still. This was the stripping run. You're basically just trying to pull out as much alcohol as possible. Once you have that alcohol, then you're gonna put it back into the still, and you're gonna do what's called a spirit run. And the spirit run, you're gonna be much more choosy about the alcohol that you keep. So right now the spirit run's coming off the still, and we're watching the proof, we're watching the flavors, and we're trying to figure out where the nicest middle ground, just that heart cut, where the nicest flavors are living. You guys want to try some new make?
Yes.
No. All right.
Oh.
All right, you're out. Caitlin, you're tapped in. I want to. It's going to be a bourbon as soon as it gets in an oak barrel. Yeah, where are we at?
Ooh.
Yeah?
Fruity.
Yeah.
Yum.
It's a little grainy, but it's got like a nice little melon note. Kind of a honeysuckle.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, like a honeydew melon.
So in our case, we're doing these pilot batches with the community. They're voting on decisions. If one of these experimental small-scale test pilot batch runs turns out amazing, then we can scale it up. We know once it ages and matures, it will be very different than this.
Right.
So how can you possibly tell whether or not it's worth, scaling?
If the new make is good, then the whiskey has potential to be good as long as you take care of it when it ages. But you can't fix bad new make by aging it. For the heat of Texas, I think this is a really narrow cut, but I think it's a really good cut.
I think it's really good.
The mash bill on this is 75-21-4. That sound familiar?
Yeah, it does. That's a little MGP action.
Yes, that is a very widely distributed and available whiskey. We wanted to see how our process, our equipment compares to something that tons of people are very familiar with. This is what, really? You leave the ringer on? Who leaves the ringer on?
Oh my gosh, it's your wife.
Wait, why is my wife calling you? What the hell is going on? Answer it. Speakerphone, please. Why are you calling my business partner? Hey. You guys want to see what happens whenever that mash bill is aged for a reasonable amount of time?
Yes.
Okay. After you get that new make spirit in a new oak barrel, then basically you're cooking up some bourbon. This has been in here 5 years, 74 days. So we're gonna pull the spirit, we're gonna let it drain through this really fine mesh, because as you'll see, lots of char in this barrel comes loose in the aging process. You notice all the black stuff right here? That's barrel char. So depending on the level of char, you're gonna be able to pull different flavors out of the wood. But you wanna filter it out because you don't want whiskey chunks floating in your pour.
You don't like pulp?
Yes, pulp. If you want to come over, you can see how dark this is. This is still barrel proof. What do you guess?
116.4.
116.4?
Yeah. 18.
Oh, 118. You're closer.
It'll drop a
I
little.
want to know how you can tell just visually, not even going on nose or taste, just visually whether or not it's a good quality whiskey.
Yeah.
The jiggle. Get in the side here and then.
Sorry, what was that sound? One more time.
All right, good job, John. You're doing it.
Oh, now we're talking.
Hills
To the yes.
That's batch number 5.
Oh, this is MGP.
Yeah.
The grain notes have subsided. That's one of the things you get over time.
Yeah.
The grain notes have dropped a little. And now all of those deep mid brown sugars and vanillas, it's still a little phenolic.
What do you think, Bonanza?
That's a warm orange. Oh!
This episode is definitely a change of pace, but hopefully it came together fairly well. A big part of the team was either sick or on vacation for most of it, and if you enjoy this kind of a peek at the process, just let us know with a like and a comment, but we mainly just wanted to say thank you. None of this would be possible without the team, the volunteers, and magnificent bastards like yourself. We'll probably never be big enough for most of you to ever try one of our spirits, but that's not really the point. I know we talk a lot about whiskey, but if you've been with us for a while, you know this isn't really about bottles of whiskey. It's the experiences we have together around that bottle. Like-minded people in good spirits. And I can't believe we've made it this far. As long as we have your support, we'll keep working to carve out a little corner of the universe where things are okay. We hope to see you here someday. Cheers.